So as I'm sure you have all seen by now, we got the very rare Woj Bomb after dark. It was even late for me at 11 p.m. and I'm on Pacific time. Talk about the hit to Sixers fans over on the East Coast where they got the news at 2 a.m. But we received the breaking news that James Harden has in fact been traded to the LA Clippers, and there is a lot to unpack here in that trade. The implications it has on the Clippers and their future, whether in fact it makes them a real threat to win the title, the implications it has on the Sixers, and what their next move is to get talent around Joel Embiid. I'll have a deeper breakdown of that on the NBA channel, so be on the lookout for that. But we're more focused here on the implications this potentially has on the Chicago Bulls, and of course, all of the rumors that have been since flying around since that trade was made. More specifically being that of Zach Lavine, considered to be a viable option for the Sixers to pursue in a trade to pair with Joel Embiid. And so I want to talk about that a little bit further, and I know a lot of Bulls fans have been asking about this. How real are these rumors? Would the Bulls actually trade Zach Lavine this early into the season? What kind of return could they get for him even? All of that. But first, a big shout out to the sponsor of today's video, SoRare, which I am super excited to tell you guys about their platform, especially considering it is free to join. It is super fun and you get to win prizes, collect digital cards and assets in the form of NFTs. Unlike most fantasy sports apps, they are different in that it's actually a fantasy gaming marketplace. There is no gambling or betting of any kind. The site enables you to play where users own their players forever. Think of it like you're a GM creating your own dynasty and you're competing weekly in fantasy competitions for great prizes. Users are owners or general managers of their team, making trades, buying and selling players, all that good stuff. And unlike other gaming sites or betting platforms, it doesn't cost you anything to play. You can start for free. I've created my own private league where you can compete and play against each other for prizes and offers, so check it out if you're interested. Join my private league. Link is in the description. We got some great people in there, and thanks again to SoRare for sponsoring this video. Now, it shouldn't be a surprise that Twitter just started blowing up right when the Sixers moved Harden and acquired a fair amount of draft capital in that deal in the form of 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, and then of course a bunch of salary filler as well, but the salary filler actually with some quality vets in that deal. But the thing is, the Sixers are not interested in the first-round picks to use for their own future when they're trying to win now and maximize the prime of Joel Embiid. They're interested in those picks to use them in a deal to acquire another star player to put next to Embiid, essentially replacing James Harden. So naturally, the media looks at all of the stars or fringe level stars that would fit well with the Sixers roster, stars who are on mediocre teams, teams that might be looking for assets to build for their future or potentially triggering a rebuild. And of course, one of those teams and players is the Chicago Bulls and Zach Lavine. The other player mentioned as a prime candidate for the Sixers to pursue was the Raptors' OG Anunoby, and really both players make sense depending on what the Sixers are wanting to prioritize more: an elite scorer that can space the floor, attack the paint, or a two-way player that's a versatile defender but maybe isn't as gifted of a scorer as Zach. But here is what I'll say as it relates to Zach being connected to some of these rumors. I mean, we've been through this before. Like, how many times in the history of Zach Lavine being a member of the Chicago Bulls have we heard his name in trade rumors? Every year it's a new team or a new rumor that this is a potential trade destination for Zach Lavine, and every year nothing happens. Zach remains with the Bulls. Now, I won't deny that the Bulls have probably taken calls on Zach as well as made calls on him just to see what his overall trade value is, what the market is like for him. They wouldn't be doing their job if they weren't at least assessing the value of their most tradable asset. But do I think the Bulls are serious about moving Zach Lavine? No. One, because we already know that this front office has been all about continuity and keeping this core together. They gave Zach Lavine a max contract extension last offseason ever since they took over the reins from Garpax. Their goal has been to build around Zach and have made that very clear with their intention by going after Vucevic at the trade deadline to ensure they were building a quality team around him so he doesn't leave in free agency. Then they also added Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso. You can say it was really to accelerate the overall timeline and start winning now, given the fact that they've just taken the reins of this entire team, but it was done in mind around keeping Zach for the long term. And so for AK and Mark Eversley to be looking to move Zach at all costs, especially this early in the season, would mean they are down and out on this guy, and would also mean admitting defeat that they shouldn't have built around him, which we know this front office doesn't do. They will continue to double down on their decisions even when deep down they know so far their decisions haven't really worked out for them. And then finally, if the Bulls do in fact trade Zach Lavine, that decision likely means triggering a rebuild. At that point, you might as well trade DeMar and Vucevic and keep building assets for the future. Now, you can argue whether the Bulls would actually be best served to do that anyway. I won't fight you on that given where this team is currently at, but we know that this front office doesn't want to do a rebuild. They decided to run it back for a reason. And unless things get really bad, they're not going to deviate from that plan. So I guess a long-winded way of saying I don't believe any of these rumors of Zach being a prime candidate to be traded to the Sixers. I'm sure the Sixers might be interested, but at the end of the day, I don't expect Acme to pull the trigger. Now, that said, every player has a price, and it's been reported that the asking price for Zach Lavine is very high. And so while I think it's highly unlikely the Bulls would trade Zach Lavine to the Sixers, a lot of it depends on how much the Sixers are willing to shell out. Because if the Sixers are really desperate, and you'd have to think they are kind of desperate after the whole James Harden debacle, and knowing they have to do everything in their power to keep Embiid happy and engaged to win a title, they could overpay for someone like Zach Lavine, a player that gives them an added level of scoring. He's in his prime, still has 4 years left on his contract, so you have him locked in for the long term to fit with Embiid's timeline. Like if Daryl Morey is really desperate and wants to throw out 3 first-round picks for Lavine and salary filler like Tobias Harris on an expiring deal, yeah, I could see the Bulls jumping on that. They would be stupid not to. That's incredible value for someone like Zach Lavine, who is a great player, one of the more gifted scorers and athletes in the league. But let's be real now, he's not a superstar level player, and there are a lot of flaws to his game. If you're getting 3 first-round picks for him, especially when things haven't really worked out thus far with this roster, and you know this team as constructed isn't going to be winning a title, yeah, getting that kind of haul makes a lot of sense. Now, do I think the Sixers would ever give up 3 first-round picks for Zach Lavine? No, I don't, because we also know Daryl Morey and his history for extracting the most value possible in any given trade, and he's not going to overpay for a player like Zach Lavine. Max, the Sixers are likely going to be comfortable giving up 2 first-round picks and salary filler, and something tells me that's not going to be enough for the Bulls to move Lavine, because they're only going to be interested in Lavine if it's a massive haul. They're in no rush to move him, especially helping out another Eastern Conference foe. If they are in fact interested in moving Lavine, they'll bide their time and wait for the best possible deal whenever that comes along. Now, I've seen others say, well, why can't the Bulls just trade DeMar DeRozan instead of Zach? Keep Lavine, but still get the picks in the process to build for the future for an older player, and the Sixers get a win-now player in DeMar to put next to Embiid. That sounds amazing, right? Yeah, you guys don't know Daryl Morey. DeMar DeRozan is the antithesis of what he wants in a player that fits his basketball offense philosophy. Morey really was one of the first people to spearhead this shift to three-point shooting in the league. For Morey, basketball should be focused on shots at the rim and three-pointers. Anything in between is an inefficient shot. DeMar DeRozan is the complete opposite of that philosophy. DeMar loves operating in the mid-range with few shots from 3, and he takes more mid-range jumpers than he does finishing near the basket. Not only that, but while DeRozan is a win-now piece in theory for the Sixers, Morey is still going to be looking for someone younger that aligns with Embiid's age and contract timeline. And getting DeMar on an expiring deal when they're most likely not going to be interested in extending him doesn't make sense if you're going to be giving up first-round picks to get a player on a 1-year rental. So no, DeMar is not going to be an option for the Sixers, and I don't even think I need to say why Vooch also would not be another option, considering they already have a top center in the league. So anyway, these rumors are always fun to talk and speculate about, and I know these rumors have Bulls fans nervous, but I'm almost certain the Bulls are not going to be moving Zach Lavine. Not now anyway. Maybe closer to the deadline if the Bulls are really struggling at that point. And if they do move Zach, my guess is they're only going to pull the trigger on a deal if it means getting a massive haul in return that would be too good to pass up, which, if you're a Bulls fan, you can't be too mad about, when it's pretty clear this team isn't it anyway. It will be interesting to see what the Sixers do with these recently acquired picks for the Harden deal, as they now have quite a few assets to work with for future trade deals. We'll have to wait and see how things shake out, because I would imagine the Sixers aren't going to want to wait until closer to the deadline to make a move when they know this is a season. They need to do everything they can to be putting a title team together right now. But let me know what you guys think of all these rumors surrounding Zach Lavine. Do you think anything actually happens this time, or is it more par for the course? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.